The city streets were drowned in the noise of traffic from cars and people alike while you walked on patrol, your head muddled with thoughts of that interrogation weeks ago. Seek still sat in your basement, now freed from the cuffs after the odd exchange he willingly offered between himself and the rest of the party. It was a surprise to even see Bakugo agree to the now enacted plan. However, it irked you to keep all of this from the Commission to enact actions outside of their jurisdiction and rules. To break the law, even though Shinzo assured everyone they were only bending them a little with ease. The Commission's history wasn't painted in gold, but they had learnt from their mistakes during the war. Surely, you thought. You grumbled under your breath in an attempt to ignore the exasperation you felt, but it still persisted knowing Seek was still on your premises, in your basement. You were holding a fugitive outside of the Commission's knowledge, and you agreed to it. Anything for Kirishima, you thought. He wouldn't have asked if it wasn't important. And for his friends, people you had grown to know over the course of the year. And then another thought crossed your mind. Kirishima's birthday was soon, grumbling deeper to yourself. You haven't thought of a gift or even anything special for him lately. With all that was happening, it slipped your mind, pondering on any small thing that would constitute a birthday gift, even. The city streets drowned your thoughts, suddenly catching wind of the panicked cries of the crowd around you, and people running past from something behind. You felt the ground tremble, turning to spot a building crumbling from its foundations. You immediately took off running, pushing through the crowd upstream, until you reach the corporate building, watching people flooding out from the doors.
What's going on?
You asked, pulling someone over briefly.
We were told to evacuate, and then something exploded inside,
quipped a woman in a suit, before she took off running. You turned to the peak, finding it swaying from wherever the explosion had blown away a part of its concrete skeleton, before you soon landed on any heroes that were present. You only spotted one by the doors, directing people to leave and flee as fast as they could from the zone. You swore you've seen him before.
Hey, what are you doing?
He yelled at your approach.
Get out of here!
Has everyone evacuated?
You asked, aiding people out along with him.
Almost, but you should leave. This building doesn't have long.
The concrete began to fall apart, crashing into the ground and crumbling with resounding destructive force, threatening to crush anyone who wasn't looking. Without thinking, the pro-hero ran towards a small crowd, his skin covered in steel before he took the blow of a large chunk of rock, protecting the few from being crushed themselves. You stared at the man, finally realizing who he was now that he activated his quirk.
Real steel?
You whispered, only distracted momentarily before you noticed more stone showering over the citizens fleeing the scene. With a running leap, you threw a kick or two in the air, sending a harsh shockwave into a few pieces of stone, destroying them into dust before they collided into bodies. It caught the attention of the pro-hero, his steely gaze staring back into yours, curious now of your quirk until...
Thumper?
You turned to find Kirishima carrying a few elderly professionals in his arms and allowing them to make their way from the building. He had already activated his quirk, covered in dust and debris from the building inside.
What are you doing here?
He asked, concerned and confused.
I was in the neighborhood.
You replied, wryly.
Red Riot, is that everybody?
Yelled the pro hero ahead, reaching the both of you.
That's the last of them,
responded Kirishima.
Now we have to...
A sudden crack caught your ear, the sound of it resonating inside your head when the building itself split in twain. It shattered, its foundations now collapsing and now falling immediately to its demise. You felt your body suddenly collected in a pair of large arms, fleeing from the doors while you watched the building fall. Its shadow grew quickly onto all three of you.
We're not going to make it!
Yelled the fellow pro hero while Kirishima turned to find the building edging closer. With a swing of his arms, you felt yourself crash into the floor, watching Kirishima immediately grow in size, pushing his quirk to cover himself entirely in stone. His body hovered over yours, watching the building behind him descend closer until the sheen of steel joined him, joining and interlocking their arms to shield you from the crash. The quiet screamed in your ear. There was hardly any movement while you covered your head with your hands and arms, wrapping yourself into a ball. The trickle of debris echoed around, feeling pressure push against your back and hugging onto you tightly.
The thumper,
growled a voice from behind, finding a large arm wrapped around your own. You felt Kirishima's breath on your neck, huddling closer.
I'm here.
You said, reaching your hand to grab his.
I'm okay.
The thumper, huh?
Spoke another voice close to you, eyeing the sheen of real steel's arms locked with Kirishima's that sheltered your head.
I figured that was who you were. Kiri talks about you non-stop. Tetsu, man, shut up,
replied Kirishima. At this close proximity, you noticed finer details on the man. A toothy grin much like Kirishima's while you stared into his silver eyes. The steel glinted against what little light cracked through the rubble, but was dulled by the dust. That didn't help you eyeing his large bare chest through his hero outfit and the size of him overall. Out of any of Kirishima's work colleagues, you had yet to meet the real Steel. At least this close and personal.
Tetsutetsu, right?
You asked, staring into his silver eyes.
The real Steel? Wow, I mean, your track record is amazing.
Thanks. It's good to hear some recognition.
He responded with a toothy, steely grin.
How's Fourthkind? I heard you're from his agency?
He's doing amazingly, but I think he's going to kill me after this.
Another smack on the head.
You burst into giggles at his response, agreeing with his sentiment before the rubble shifted on top. Despite the amount of rubble that pushed against the strength of both men, it didn't seem to faze either of them. now utilizing less of their quirks and maneuvering a little to compensate for the situation. Each little movement brought all three of you closer in the vicinity you had, finding Kirishima clutching onto you all the same.
Tell him I said hi.
Continued Tetsutetsu.
When we get ourselves out of here, I mean.
The sidekicks shouldn't be long.
Reminded Kirishima, while he still protected your head from the rubble.
You called the agency, right?
Yeah, of course I did.
Snapped Tetsutetsu.
What do you take me for? An intern?
I was collecting anyone unable to evacuate. Doesn't hurt for me to confirm. How long ago did you radio in?
I don't know, 10 minutes, maybe? Literal concrete was falling from the sky.
Guys, hey, the more we agitate the rubble, the less room we...
Your words were interrupted by the sound of movement amongst the concrete shifting atop Kirishima and Tetsutetsu, forcing Tetsutetsu to move closer in, pushing you into Kirishima and keeping you snug between the both of them. Your hands pushed against Tetsutetsu's chest, feeling the cold steel across his skin, while your body pressed into Kirishima's, his heat permeating across your back and his breath washing atop your neck. It was compromising.
Wow, you really are cute.
Voiced Tetsutetsu staring down at you.
Tetsu, don't push it.
Warned Kirishima, almost with a growl in his voice that you felt across the hairs on your neck.
Hey, I can't help it. It's not often I get to spend some time with someone cute looking, even when trapped under massive amounts of rubble.
Yeah, well, don't get any ideas.
Kirishima's grip tightened around your frame, protecting you from the rubble, but hugged on to you almost possessively.
Kiri, relax. I get it. You talk about them all the time.
He does?
You questioned, finally getting a word in.
Of course, man's got a huge crush on you. Like, heavy.
Tetsu!
Yelled Kirishima, feeling his grip pull you in.
I'm only being honest. He really likes you. Like, I can understand why.
Continued Tetsutetsu with a grin.
I mean, you asked him out. He takes you out. Literally every time anyone at the agency spots you for training with him, they can tell how much you light him up. And from what I can see now, and from what I saw up there, I feel unlucky that I hadn't met you first.
You couldn't tell if the heat from the tiny space was getting to you, or if you grew embarrassed from that semi-confession of sorts. Your hand still pressed against Tetsutetsu's chest, feeling his heartbeat calm and steady. However, Kirishima's arms and hands clutched onto you, still holding you to him while his lips pressed against your neck, unmoving and quiet. You felt his breath against your skin, feeling his embarrassment just as much as you felt yours. It only brought a smile to your lips, imagining Kirishima sharing his life with others and now knowing he shared you with them.
Thanks, Tetsutetsu. That's very kind of you to tell me how much Eijirou really cares.
You said while your fingers clutched onto Kirishima's, squeezing his half-hardened hands.
It's flattering, actually.
Tetsutetsu chuckled while he shifted slightly again, holding his steel arm across your head and clutching onto Kirishima's shoulders, sharing a bridge of strength upholding the rubble.
Hey, that's what bros are for.
He commented with a grin.
All I'm saying is that everything Kiri says about you is true.
You okay, Eijirou?
You asked, attempting to shift your gaze to turn towards him.
Yeah, I'm good.
He spoke against your neck, tickling it a little, while his arm protected you from the debris.
Psychics should be here by now.
Yeah, and most likely digging through the rubble.
Continued Tetsutetsu with a stern tone, his eyes scanning around while listening intently to any sounds outside. The shift of rock brought some hope in all three of you, catching wind of the distant yells of people above.
Hey, isn't this almost like the first time the both of you worked together?
Asked Tetsutetsu nonchalantly. The question caught both Kirishima and yourself off guard, realizing the situation was awfully similar. The mission in Esuha City together was a memorable experience, chuckling under your breath at the circumstances that followed after.
So, you know the details of that day too?
You asked in jest, slightly turning your gaze back onto Kirishima.
Who could forget? The whole place came crashing down, and explains how the both of you work well together. Oh, and the day Kiri couldn't stop talking about you.
Explained Tetsutetsu, still attentive to the sounds and cries of people through the rubble.
Tetsu, remind me to only work with you outside of Esuha City.
Commented Kirishima in exasperation.
Huh? Why?
Questioned Tetsutetsu, a little offended by his statement. You couldn't help bursting out into giggles, still holding yourself close to Kirishima to avoid agitating the rubble any further. Both men looked between themselves and you, soon calming down from their quips to smile. They both shared a look, one that they both agreed upon, while Tetsutetsu returned to listening to the shifting of rubble and concrete above. Kirishima returned to you, hugging you closely onto him while you still shook from laughter at their behavior. Within this moment, there was an accord. You felt protected between the two, understanding where they both stood as pro-heroes and as friends.
Hey! We're down here!
Yelled Tetsutetsu, crying through the rubble. The sound of rock shifted and eased on their arms, hearing the clear voices of sidekicks and emergency personnel yelling back in response. Soon, sunlight breached through the cracks, seeing it glint against Tetsutetsu's skin, gleaming against his steel. The debris still crumbled around with pebbles and dust until Tetsutetsu's arm was freed to stretch above, leaving your head shielded by Kirishima's hardened arm.
Come on, you first.
Ordered Tetsutetsu, his silver eyes staring into yours. You turned to Kirishima, wanting any sign of confirmation from him before making a choice, only to be given a toothy grin by the redhead, still within the rubble.
Go ahead, Thumper. We're right behind you.
He reassured, lifting his arm to allow some room for you to shift underneath. With a nod, you moved slowly into Tetsutetsu's chest, pressing against him to spot the sunlight above, finding open hands ready to pull you out from the broken debris. You reached out for them, feeling Tetsutetsu's hands hold you tightly and safely before the sunlight stung your eyes a little. Hands grabbed you from everywhere, pulling you out from the dust until you laid above, being examined by medical staff on your condition. Tetsutetsu grinned at the sight of you being freed before he turned to Kirishima, finding a disapproving look on the man's face.
Oh, what now?
Complained Tetsutetsu with his hand out to Kirishima. A moment passed before Kirishima grabbed hold of his hand, shifting from the rubble and allowing some of its weight to collapse from behind him. He still stared into Tetsutetsu's eyes with that disapproval, until they softened with a small smile on his face.
Thanks for making me look good.
He spoke genuinely. Tetsutetsu grinned back, ready to climb out until he felt a harsh tug from Kirishima's hand, holding him back from leaving.
But the next time I see you touch Thumper's butt again, I'll kill you,
warned Kirishima with that same smile.
I was helping them get out,
retorted Tetsutetsu, releasing his hand from Kirishima's before he climbed into the sunlight, being helped by emergency personnel above. Kirishima soon followed suit, chuckling to himself before seeing the bright sunlight sting his eyes a little. It wasn't long until he was helped by sidekicks on his well-being in the aftermath, being led to the ambulances on standby. He soon spotted you across the way, already examined by medical staff and being attended by a few sidekicks from Fat Gum's agency as well. He caught your smile from afar, noticing your well-being and how very little you came out unscathed from the ordeal. Good. The last thing he wanted was to see you with scars from unnecessary things.
You okay?
You asked, watching Kirishima approach you after relieving the sidekicks by his side.
Of course I am.
He replied immediately, examining your head.
What about you?
I'm fine.
You chuckled.
Thanks to both you and Tetsutetsu. He's a good guy.
One of the manliest you could ask for.
Manlier than you?
A stern look crossed Kirishima's face, causing you to chuckle at his response.
I'm kidding.
You piped with a chirp.
No one's manlier than you.
Except you.
He quipped.
Huh.
You sighed, knowing to give up on that kind of argument. Kirishima joined you by the ambulance, sitting next to you while watching the aftermath unfold. The building was no more, crumbled to a mass of broken concrete and stone. You leaned your head onto Kirishima's shoulder, enjoying the calm until...
Before I forget, I hope you have a happy birthday.
You mulled in passing, catching his ear.
So much is going on, and getting my wishes in early is probably the best course of action.
Kirishima was taken by surprise by your statement. However, you thought it best to send him at least well wishes from you. If a gift was impossible, and finding the time to spend with him was out of sight, it was the least you could do.
Hey, we're all going to head back to my agency. How about you join Tetsutetsu and I tonight?
Asked Kirishima nonchalantly.
We were thinking of hanging out at Cantina's. Shinso suggested it.
You raised your head to stare into his eyes, surprised by the sudden invitation.
Sure. Is it a special occasion?
Kind of. Not really. Tetsutetsu and I share the same birthday, so we decided to celebrate it early together before the actual day arrives. I think it'd be good if we all enjoyed it together.
You smiled brightly at the suggestion, only to hear a familiar gruff yell catch both Kirishima's and your ear. Tetsutetsu reprimanding sidekicks was a sight to behold, lecturing them for the amount of time they took to answer a call. However, Kirishima chuckled under his breath, knowing the kind of stress that was placed on the hero and close friend. He never intended a crisis to be the first time to officially introduce you to his work colleagues, but the trust was there. He had no worries at all. Thank you for tuning in to another fanfiction reading. If you enjoy what I do or would just prefer to fall asleep to my voice, please hit the like button, ring that bell, and subscribe to my channel. It has been some time since I've made a birthday video, and after a quick Discord call and a suggestion, someone thought it best to write another 7 Minutes in Heaven, and I decided to do that. It was fun, actually. I really enjoyed writing for Tetsutetsu and seeing what that kind of dynamic would have been. I do hope to write a fair bit more. After being gone for so long, I hope to keep entertaining and to keep continuing these timelines. They are actually coming to a head. I can see it now, but we shall see. Thank you for listening. I hope to hear from you soon. Next we meet.